Hello, welcome to the Reframing Mindset podcast. We are clear my head of the thoughts that are preventing clarity to practice my speech, among other things. Episodes range from informative knowledge to funny stories about my experiences, and in the future, maybe include interviews. So subscribe and enjoy. Episodes drop every other day. Okay, so welcome back to the Reframe Mindset podcast. My name is Colin Smith Brooks. I know, and as I'm recording this, and it's a special day for where I'm at. You know, it's Emancipation Day. So this episode will be coming out the day after. The day after. What's Emancipation Day? It's the day that we made slavery illegal. You know, so yeah. Back in the days, we were this country was a slave nation and such, but we after a few rebellions and whatnot, they decided, okay, we're going to make this thing illegal. We can't, we can't really do this now. We can't really do this anymore. So, thanks to those fight now, we are kind of more freer than we was back then. I have to be grateful for all those who put up the hard fight, to really get us out of slavery. Because boy, I don't really think I could read manage slavery. Like back in the days, I usually watch this movie where it's like they're showing how slavery was from the African slave trade to really on the plantation. It's like, yo, the ship that they were carrying on where they're basically packed like sardines, basically, yo, I think I would die from that point. like, like legit. Yo, like bro, from the ship, a lot of people were dying. Like all of them that they pack on the ship didn't reach the land. And it's like, yo, that's sad. I think I would be dead from the ship, bro, cause of how they packed it. How they packed it, yo. I would die from that. Cause like, yo, they said in there, like they would even make them get up for to use the bathroom or anything. They have to just use it right there where they at, and they're packed together. And it's like, oh my gosh, yo, it's a disgrace, brother. It's a disgrace, G. Yeah, slavery was a mess, brother. Slavery was a mess. It was a mess. But yo, thank God for those who put up the hard fight. Thank God for those who put up the hard fight and got us out of it. Mhm. And it's up to us, me and you listening to this, to not get us back to that, to bring us further. Cause boy, you don't want to really go back to those days at all. So basically, this episode is going to talk about how was 2020 for me, Cause in the podcast I give you a lot of snippets and such like that. But I've made this far, and I try my best to actually give you a more concise recap of it. Yeah, and I think it still won't really capture everything, because really you have to really experience it to really see it. You have to really experience it to really see how 2020 was. But you know, yeah. I try my best to encapsulate what really happened, what caused all those changes in my perspective and mental. So basically, 2020 was a great trial for me. Yeah, basically, I was trying to learn how to support myself, guys. In 2020, that would make it 2 years since I left university. And in 2019, which was when I started to listen to podcasts, when I actually learned, when this one podcast that I was talking about, yo, look out for something coming in 2020, because this world is getting unstable and such. I guess I have to, damn, bro, the rain. Okay, yo. So okay, we're back. Yeah, man. So basically, yo, when we went into 2020, there was two main goals that I had. So basically, two one of the goal was basically to travel, travel, and the next goal was basically to deliver a note to a girl, and two of them were separate goals. Two of them were separate goals, and they were for separate reasons. So the girl one was kind of a personal reason I'm trying to get over. Not deal with females, I guess delivering that note to that girl would actually just kind of say, okay, boom, I can at least go out there and do it, you know, so that I can get over this thing with the girl. And the traveling goal was basically something for us and our friends, this country that we love, Japan. I say, yeah, man. They would say, yeah, we want to go. But, the country where I'm at is not a really a rich country. So, and coming out of university and such, getting a job, it wasn't easy, as you may know from the podcast and such. And yeah, so and then but plane tickets, especially to go somewhere like Japan, wasn't a bed of roses. Wasn't something easy. And so the opportunity for the podcast was, I guess, the best idea I had at the time to actually maybe have a chance to go there. But in reality, where the way things were, I don't really think I could actually make it. But the goal was there, same way for us and a friend. So yeah, so basically, 2020 was those two main goals, and then the next goal was basically not trying to get the disease, not trying to get the disease. But what happened in 2020 was no, that basically I was learning more about the world. I was learning more about politics, the real world, and all kind of things. So like 2020 was like me fighting the world with a handicap, with a handicap because like 2020 I got an illness. I got an illness that I was recovering from while trying to make some progress, you know, and while also not knowing if this was basically going to be my last day because of how serious the pandemic was. Like legit, every day you hear tragedy and the news and all kind of stuff, and there's no improvement. Every day is getting worse. The lockdowns are getting worse and straight. Nothing is not getting better. And it's like, bro, come on, man, come on. Like every time there's a chance to make some progress, somebody mess it up, and then it gets worse. You know, yeah. It's kind of 2018. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in biochemistry, but the whole of 2020, I was I was barely dealing with any science. I was learning about religion, politics, history of the country that I live in, and basically the harsh reality of how it's not basically a bed of roses. Like I was at my grandmother's place, I learned from my grandmother's and I learned about her story and how she got to where she's at. I'm like, bro, she's like, it's ain't no bed of roses. Not like the way she talking, she has say, yo, like she was born. I think she was born. She was born after the slave, the slavery ended. But her last story, she basically said, the way she happened, where she was grown and what she went through, she basically knew about slavery. And it's kind of understandable because you know her mother would have been my grandmother. Her mother would have been born, I guess, maybe like few times after the slavery was ended. So this the mentality would be there still. It would be gone. It would be gone. So there will still be the same mindset, similar mindset that they would be used growing in those times. And yeah, so kind of understandable. But learning the story and such like that, and then knowing me and knowing me, I'm like, bro, this world ain't easy at all, man. This world ain't easy at all. Like legit, I all I want to do is simply give this girl this note and stuff like that, and I learn about all the hard stuff, especially with dealing with girls. Like legit, all kind of bad things can happen if in the real world. Uh, if it doesn't go right, they can go to jail, domestic abuse, all these stuff. I'm like, damn, bro, it's as risky as that all. And all these stuff that she was talking about was stuff that I was learning from the podcast. So she kind of going through that kind of actually confirmed that, and then basically when I was confirming that, she was like saying, "Yo, she didn't know what I've been listening to and such like that." But so 2020 has been a very weird. Re- it was a very weird year. Weird year. I can tell. Weird, weird. So the hell that is 2020 started off with Kobe's death, and that was in January. I think it was like January 6th. So how I found out was like legit. I left I left my home. So I was basically um traveling, Basically it wasn't far. It was a place that I usually just go to every day to buy groceries. And I said, okay, I'm like going to just explore the explore the parish and just walk around and see, because by the time when I left the university, I barely left the house. I was basically broke as hell. So I basically didn't leave the house unless I was buying groceries and such like that. So I went out feeling happy and all these things. And then when I came home and then go back on the internet, because I don't use have internet on the road. When I go home and start looking at internet, I see Kobe Bryant is dead, died from a helicopter crash. I'm like, what? Yo, is like, bro, is like a guy that we look up. It wasn't basically my favorite, but you know, playing basketball and such, we looked up to him like he was one of those people that we know. Well, it was January 26th that he died, not January 6th, January 26th. See, this guy just died. Basically, someone we know, basically grew up with, and he just died randomly. I'm like, yo, from then, you could tell that this 2020 year is going to be a mess. And it's like, yo, I felt that one. And when I felt that one, after a while, something just came to me. And it's like I post up and I said, okay, it's time to start to reframe my mindset. And that's how the name Reframe Mindset podcast came about. And eventually that kind of propelled me to actually start to make the podcast. So I started setting up the stuff to actually make the podcast. I basically talking to some of my friends that actually know about heard about it and be like, yo, I guess, yo, based on what he interviews and such, he usually say, yo, he's living his best life. I guess the only thing we can do is try to live ours, do the best we can to live ours, to so that we can, you know, make him proud. That's legit all we can do. Yes. So, uh, the next thing that kind of happened was then. So into this year, you remember mentioned that I started learning about politics a lot. This. So I usually watch YouTube videos and such, and then there were this. Um, so I usually watch listen podcasts. So into 2020, so in 2019, going up into 2020, it's when I started listening to podcasts. And then he had the top podcaster, Joe Rogan. I usually watch some of his YouTube podcasts until I saw this one came up with this candidate running for president of America. And bro, the way he speaks like actually a smart person, like answering questions so simple and such that I actually got interested in politics. Being like, yeah, this guy actually have some know how to really talk and explain the thing that he's going to do, and not making no self foolish promises and don't really explain how he's going to get it. He explains how he's going to do it, how he's going to pay for it, and all those stuff. And he that kind of personality actually got me interested in politics when I wanted him to actually see him win. And I was basically following his candidacy the whole time, and watching the rise and such like that, and watching not only that, watching how like the media is basically ignoring, basically, not giving him any chance to get any we'll call it news attention and such like that. He was basically fighting hard. But we were supporting him and he was growing slowly over time. And then what happened was like after the first state voted, he didn't do well. And then after, basically, I think I left the home again to actually travel and such. When I came back, the message happened that he dropped out of the race. I'm like, what? Yeah, that felt like somebody, like that message actually felt like somebody died in my family broke. It's like someone that every day I will wake up and look forward to actually just going on Twitter and such and see how his candidacy and such is going. Basically, I say, okay, yeah, he dropped out, and all the people that were supporting him doing all this stuff find out that he dropped out. That's one of the wildest thing. Yeah, it really put me those things actually put me in a real depression, real depression, and that was like February. So I started the podcast now that which actually track my progress because I was on this self improvement journey. Actually trying to gain confidence in myself because okay, if you remember, I leave school. I got the job for like 2 months, that programming job. Then I got laid off due to the client not don't have enough money to pay the company and such. So after then I was kinda unemployed and I was really sustaining myself and I had no clue how to really push through. And I have no idea. I had no framework or nothing to actually look at to actually see how to actually progress in my life. And yeah, so I was trying a lot of different things and watching a lot of stuff. People would call, some of my friends that I usually know, they would usually ask me like, yo, where you at and how things and such like that. I would usually say what's going on. And, I was saying, yeah, I'm pretty good and whatnot. But in reality, I was basically lost. But not really lost. I was like in a bubble. I was like in a bubble from like real world, but kind of like in the future, like all the things that I've been learning. For example, like the podcasting. No, but then when I usually listen to podcasts, none of my friends basically knew what podcasting was. So basically I was ahead of the time back then. And some things that I've been learning, when I was talking to some of my friends actually telling them what's going on, it's like it's like yo, I would be so like an alien to them, because none of those things would really matter to them. They're basically just dealing with simple real life issues. Yeah, so from then I kind of already seen that okay, my journey will be drifted out from them after a while. It was going to work. It was going to work. I had to actually just try to find a way to actually find myself. So the next thing I was trying to do was trying to gain confidence because the plan was there was this party coming up in March that I want to go to. And then, grade that I go to. And I said, okay, boom. Can I just give the note to her then? I can basically get over it and move on and such. So that was the plan. So when the time come, it's almost here. So I was ready to leave. So I tell my commander that okay, I'm going to leave to go to the party actually, go experience the party, which was a carnival. She's saying like, no, can't leave. The virus is here, you know. And if you remember, one of the things that the person was saying that look out in 2020, look out for an economic collapse, a plague, terrorism, all kind of stuff. Are five things that he mentioned that we must look out for. That was one of the reasons why he told us to get our mind, our money right, and all those stuff, so that we can actually ride out this 2020 storm. So while I had the information, I barely and I tried to actually do things actually get my mind and money right to actually put me in the position to be prepared to ride out this 2020 storm. But yeah, 2020 was slowly breaking down me mentally. So if you remember, one of the things that he said was to get our mind right. But 2020 was breaking me down mentally with the death and then dropping out of those candidates. And then now the virus. So basically, yeah, after a few quarrel with my grandmother, I decided, okay, I'm not going to go to the party. Then after a while, a sickness came to me because I was basically exercising. Trying to say I'm going to try gain weight. Uh, but then I weighed like 145 pounds. So I was saying I was going to exercise to actually get myself fit and eat to actually get to maybe 175 pounds. So that was the goal. But I ended up got anemic because of malnutrition. I was basically eating the same thing every day, no changes to the diet, but actually doing more and um, more and more exercise. And the lifestyle changes was very drastic because when I started on the self development journey, I was basically saying, okay, I'm going to stop all the bad habits I usually do and basically I switch them off for good habits like exercising, working on my business, and all those stuff. So basically, I stopped that, and then what happened was like the first day I'm doing okay, the second day I feel with energy, the third day I like I feel great after like like couple hours of sleep. Like I'm waking up 3 in the morning, feeling energized and whatnot. I'm doing the exercise and such until like what happened was like the emotions like that have been um suppressing and such just start come up back to me, and I feel start to get emotional and all those stuff, and then depression start to hit, and all those things that I was trying to repress, like the Kobe's death actually start to get to me right then. Because when he died, I was strong enough to actually say, okay, boom, he did his thing, and he died and moved on. But after that, those feelings start to actually get to me. I'm like, yo, I started getting really emotional. So that was one of the next thing that actually happened the whole of 2020. I was really emotional and I crying a lot and such. And it was wild. Wild. So like the whole of 2020 was me actually trying to rebuild myself to become the person that I need to be to actually self actualize. So the next thing that came up was like paranoia because when I actually got the sickness was around. If you remember, like before, I had to cry with my family, and my grandmother said, "Oh, the corona is here." When the sickness came, I swear, my mind was keep on telling me, "Yo, maybe it's corona, maybe it's corona." That really was getting to me. But when actually I went to the doctor, they said, "Okay, I had anemia, and it was really bad, so bad that I almost needed blood transfusion, but I never really needed." So they just prescribed a couple iron pill and told me that okay, I need to eat this and I eat a lot more iron stuff. So like green vegetable, all these things. And yeah, so that basically was me 2020 trying to recover from this anemia while also trying to dodge the corona. So that was basically 2020. Meanwhile, this whole pandemic is going on. Pandemic is going on. So like so the illness now basically left me mentally weak, like legit mentally weak. And not only that, it's like I had information overload because of all of the podcasts I've been listening to and all this stuff. So everything I've been learning just kind of pack up into me, and then with this illness, I started to mentally doubt myself. Now because when I left university, the university knowledge that I have, it, you know, I knew how to actually protect myself. I knew that the virus was coming. I knew how I was going to protect myself. But when the time came, it's like my whole mental was broken down, and I keep on doubting myself, keep on because the illness actually kind of made me doubt myself because I never knew, I never saw it coming. I never saw it coming, and something like this randomly taking me in the real world, it actually kind of doubt my ability to actually take care of myself. So that was wild. That was wild, man. So the 2020, I was trying to recover my mental while also learning a lot of things, a lot of shocking things about myself, about my family, and how, you know, with all this information, I'm trying to find out what I'm going to do with it to actually progress. Because in the future, I like to start a family of my own. And with all the reality that I'm learning, it's like there's no perfect way. Life is not a bed of roses. And how am I going to actually deal with all this bad stuff? So, yeah, it's wild. It was a wild thing, bro. I guess I have to stop for this. Um, for this, no, I'll record the third part af- after a while. Because I'm actually really tired. I'm working on this in the night. Actually, I feel pretty tired, so I'm actually going to get some sleep so that I can actually tell the last part more energized. Yeah. Okay, so we're back. So basically, 2020, I started off kind of broke, confident, broke, and kind of lost, you know. But throughout 2020, the world was mentally breaking me down month by month. You know, until a point I got insomnia. Like legit, I was afraid to sleep, bro, because I don't know why. Like this, the paranoia and the anemia really got to me to the point where I'm saying like, yo, I was hallucinating all kind of stuff. You know, all kind of stuff, and I was free to sleep because I thought that if I fell asleep, bro, I was going to die. So like for a few days I didn't sleep. And like every day I didn't go to sleep, like the hallucination and everything was getting worse. You know? So basically to actually start I could recover, I had to actually get some sleep. But it took like 3 days to actually get over that fear to sleep. hmm And that kind of actually started me lost some of my memory. Like you know, like remember when I told her that I I remember I know how to protect myself from the virus and such like that before it came. But when it was here, I started mentally doubting myself because legit, I was I was weak. My body was weak. My mind was weak, and all the things that I could do, I was barely able to do it again. So it's like, I was basically handicapped. That's whole most of the year, and because of the anemia and like the pandemic, like legit, what happened was anybody the country I was in, it's not really a science really driven country. So basically when they hear the virus it's here, it's like yeah, anybody that has the symptoms or such like that, it's like they assume it's COVID. And I guess it makes sense. It's better to prevention is better than cure. But like they would basically be very violent if it's you're presenting any one of those symptoms because they don't want to catch it. You know. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't leave the whole leave my home for like the majority of 2020 because like first thing was I don't want to catch it and then give it to my grandmother, and two like legit I don't want how the streets were during those times. It was pretty dangerous, it was pretty dangerous. So I had to just stay majority of 2020 home trying to recover. hmm So after anemia diagnosis, one of the main reasons was malnutrition. I was basically carrying my university cooking style to the real world, which was basically cooking the same thing every day, but doing a whole different lifestyle, like trying to improve myself, um, getting rid of majority of bad habits that I was doing, but basically change it to a drastically new lifestyle and not changing the nutrition um, will actually make you start to lose nutrients a lot. And what really why I did a change because I said I was broke. I was broke, so I couldn't really afford to get some new type of meal to actually eat and such like that. So I had to just stay to the simple stuff that I usually cook. And so it was me setting myself up for failure from the start, and I was basically doing it by myself, and I really have anybody teaching me. It was me just trying to learn how to develop myself. So that's one thing. That's one thing about this podcast. Is all these things are things that I learn on my own and face mistakes and then learn from it. So m- everything that I talk about is through trial and error and learn. You know, hmm So that's one of the things. So half of the year was me being passive and kind of afraid. You know, like this was this was um I I guess you have the AIDS. I don't think that I don't remember if that was a pandemic. Yeah, I think it was a pandemic at one point, but it was a sexually transmitted disease. I was pretty young that time, and I never really planned. Pretty young, like in grade one, grade two. So I never really have planned to have sex. So that was kind of not not it. But yeah, I've faced quite a few epidemics, chikungunya, all those stuff. I've faced a few epidemics, but I was in school. But this one now will be the first pandemic, and I'm out of school, and legit, my m- me protecting myself would be my main responsibility. My family can help me somewhat, but it's up to me to actually protect myself. So this was the first pandemic that I'm dealing with, and I was pretty passive because yo, it was pretty like my as I said, I was mentally weak, and people's like my family's being my family being afraid, you know, got it got to me as well. So if you're surrounding yourself with a lot of people who are paranoid and afraid, you and you're mentally weak, you basically absorb those those things, and then you start becoming afraid as well. So that's what kind of happened to me as well. So that was basically the first half. But eventually, I had to start making moves. And after, because this pandemic was not getting any better or something like that, but I had to start do something to actually try to progress my life. And every one of those moves kind of alienated some of my family members, because everybody was kind of paranoid about the virus, you know. So basically, the second half now of the year was pretty inefficient because of all the rules that was up. They have the mask and sanitize. They have the 6 feet, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. hmm So although that rules kind of really make a lot of things that I was doing pretty inefficient a lot. So yeah. So one of the next thing I kind of do was in the second year was me learning about the proper meals to make so I don't get anemic. So I was learning that from my family. They know about all the green stuff. It was them that I learned to drink beetroot juice. Cause beetroot and carrot gives you a lot of iron. You know, callaloo. So that's where I kind of 2020 was me kind of learn how to really sustain myself as a man, as a man and such like that for my family, learn how to do it. And that was kind of one of the good thing that came from 2020, learning that. hmm So some days I was getting back I was progressing and getting better. And then I would try to like exercise and such like that. But then some days I was getting back worse. Some days I was getting back worse. Yeah. And then 2020 doing what it was done. Some things that I witnessed, bro. I I kind of mentioned it in the podcast, but bro, you have to really see it to actually experience it. So I really can't explain it. I can't really explain it because if you explain it, mm, it's a lot of things, like things I want to mention, but it doesn't make sense that I mention it, bro. But a lot of bad things, like things that were going on in America at those times. Pretty bad, pretty bad. hmm So the next thing now basically is to get my driver's license, cause after seeing what was going on through this whole year, I realized that I had to actually start making my move. I had to start making my move because this was getting any better. So I had to so in order for me to progress, I have to start take these risks and such like that. So every day, no, I was basically living like my last day. I was living it like my last day. So I was go trying to get my driver's license. But again, I was kind of mentally weak. But um, but I had to learn, I had to progress somehow. So I was talking to my father and my family member how to get the license. And they set up the thing, set up the training, how to actually get the license. And basically, what happened now when I reached the point to do the exam, because I never had an address, a home address in that area that I was practicing, I had to actually move to another area in the area that I live in to actually go and practice the driving there. That's when I actually moved out of my grandmother house. And then after then was surviving was up to me. I had to protect myself. I had to protect the people that I was dealing with, because as I said, never had any car, never had any license, so I took taxis and such like that. So I had to protect myself. I had to protect the person I was living with. I had to protect the people that I was going to interact with. So me staying healthy and such like that was very imperative. And at the time, there was a lot of fines, like if you don't have your mask and such like that, you get fined a lot of money. And I was broke, and I was really that rich. So you know, yeah, yeah. So failure at that time means either death, jail, or a lot of money being paid. And I had no time for neither. So you see how protective myself then was kind of really. imperative, really imperative. Hmm. So yeah, so basically, what happened was, when I started down there, that's when I kind of start recording about the podcast again because after a few episodes, if you really look at some of the episode, the early episode, you'll see it's something I re-upload. Because when I started the episode, um, when I started the podcast, I was doing great and such like that. But then I started getting paranoid, the depression started to get to me, and then I stopped recording. And throughout the pandemic, I actually deleted the episode because I was getting paranoid and thought like I was afraid that somebody was listening to it and such like that. You know, but when I left home and basically finish up, I decided that okay, I'm going to start recording some of the podcast episode again because I actually know some things and they want to make sense that I actually spread the knowledge because it- it's yeah, makes sense. I spread the knowledge that maybe some person will know and can help themselves. Hmm. So that's basically what I did until I eventually started up taking up doing it seriously. I started doing a lot of more episodes and then eventually interviews and such. And then boom, you know, I'm here now. Hmm. So basically, what happened now was 2020 was where actually I started to develop my own philosophy. Like all the things that I was learning from different people and such like that, I started taking piece, and then I started to see how I want to live my life. You know, and and my mentor started to get clearer, and eventually I started to develop my own vision, and and had my own dreams and ambition. You know, so basically, my I think 2020 was a year designed to actually break me down and rebuild me. And basically, if I actually did die in 2020, that means I wasn't ready for this vision and this new me that that I am now. So yeah, low key, I'm kind of grateful for 2020, while really sad for the casualties. But it seemed like it was unavoidable. Like the way things were going, it was seemed like it was unavoidable for my growth. Like legit. I try to help who I can, but it's like back then and still now, people weren't really taking my message seriously. It's like people thought I was mad or whatever. And guess it makes sense in their head, but the thing about it is that I'm here recording this episode now, you know, and where the others are, I can't really tell, So I can't really I help who I can, and whoever made it now, you know, yeah. So 2020, so in 2020, I had some personal goals that I wanted to achieve, but real world problem forced me to taking on responsibility earlier than I expected when I was kind of ill equipped to take on these things. So basically, I had to learn on the fly. Yeah, because 2020, I was still kind of being like a kid. I had the person that I want to party and such like that. But 2020 slapped me in the face and I had to actually grow up quick. To grow up and like, yeah. It also made me had to put all the money and resource management thing that I was learning into practice as well. At, as I was as I had to learn how to spend wisely, or basically I was starved. You know, yeah, yeah. So that was one of the things that I kind of learned in 2020. I had to actually grow. I had to start applying all the things that I've been learning into practice. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess looking back now, I'm kind of grateful for that because right now, I think what I'm doing now is kind of, I understand my responsibility and manage them well, but I'm trying to incorporate some of my childhood stuff now that I kind of left behind back into me because, yeah, but no, doing it that way where doing it my way, the way I like it. Because when I'm growing up, it was all up to my family to develop, deliver the childhood things that I want. So, like for example, game, I will ask them for a for a certain game, and they will buy brick game because they really know the game. But since I know how the game that I want, it's up to me to basically work for it and then get it. So I see, yeah. So that's basically the me now. Yeah, that's basically me now. I'm able to. I know the thing that I want, so all I have to do is just work for it and get it. Yeah. So gladly that um help that helped me. And 2020 was also when I actively experienced family time, where basically I got closer with my family. And I actually understand the dynamics of the relationship from a different family and such like that. I understand. Yeah, because like it wasn't really a like, our family is not really a, we call it a perfect family. We have our issues and whatnot. But 2020 is when I took the time to really understand the dynamics and social of the family. I really understand where I can control and what I can't control. I realize that okay, I can just do the best I can. I can't really change certain things, but I can just make sure that I do my best to actually be play my part. And throughout the journey, I turned some against me and whatnot, but I had to do it to actually get to where I'm at now. You know, yeah. But I guess so. That's basically how my 2020 went, and now basically I lost a lot of people. Not really through death and such like that, but through a lot of misunderstanding. Through a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of people through misunderstanding and different goals and whatnot. I know I'm here. Ideally, I would like to rekindle those relationships, but you know, none of them. I guess I can't really do nothing about it. Can't really do nothing about it. If it was meant to be, meant to be. That's so. While that those things can help me, I have to progress. I have to progress. So yeah, that was basically how 2020 was for me. I seen something. It was my basically first real world test. It was my first real world test, and and funny thing, the way the test was. It was like the world was calling me. It was like the world was calling me. Say, "Oh, you need to start putting the work." Because I was pretty passive like the first half, but realizing that, but eventually realizing that like the world was calling me to do something. And it was like the first time I realized that, I got the degree. I got the degree, and I thought I was, but I realized that, the the degree actually means something. Like I really must actually do something to really progress the world. So that was one thing. I think that I also learned about 2020 is I got the degree, yeah, and I was happy on that. But in the real world, I have to actually apply it and help these people because there are people that actually needed help. Like literally, when I go in the real world, I have homeless people, all these people that are sick. So I realized that I have to actually help these people. There was a responsibility. There was an indirect responsibility that since I'm privileged to get this opportunity, I have to really go and try some way to actually help these people. So that was one of the things that actually I learned in 2020, the indirect responsibility that I had, even though to get this degree. Yeah, and it's one of those, yeah. hmm So 2020 was a very enlightening year. Like literally, I can't really explain. You have to really go through it to experience it. Like my perspective, you really have to go through it to experience it. But it was a wild journey. Looking back, I really love that journey. I don't want to go through. I, it's a wild journey. Some days it's a wild journey. It was one of my most exciting year of my life, but one of the worst year for the world. Mm-mm. Yeah, so it's a wild journey. It's a wild it's a wild journey. So that's basically it for how my 2020 went. hmm Thank you for listening and look forward for our next episode. Yeah.
Well, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for watching and look forward for the next episode. To support this podcast, go to anchor.fm/cssb/support or become a sponsor for this episode. If you have a product that you want to have more exposure, DM me on the Instagram page, Reframing Mindset Podcast, or on Twitter at ReframingP. Either way would help. Thank you regardless for listening, and here's a preview for the next episode.
Basically, I guess one of the goal that I had of not recording the night is going to take a while because I guess time. If you listen to my episode about time, you know, time is just a thing that is not on my side right now, but I'm working towards getting it towards towards my side. Yeah, but other from that now, I guess this topic will be about, you know, there's really a market for everything. I know I always, when I came out of university and such, I knew this guy, this guy, everybody's supposed to know of him, Gary V. And, he always talk about, going on a purpose and doing what, not really going